RE2, we are back, of course, talking that FF7. You know the motherfucking drill, my dudes. So, new interview with our boy Naoki Hamaguchi, director of the 7 Remake series, with Gamer Braves, which is a Malaysian outlet. This interview dropped super early in the morning yesterday, like 2 in the morning or something my time, roughly, just a handful of hours after our last upload, because we always upload kind of later in the day, right? And I wanted to talk about it yesterday, but kind of as the day went on, I was seeing people talk about there being like mistranslations in this interview in terms of the people that put up the video, like the subtitles on the video were misquoting Hamaguchi. So for that reason, I was a little bit hesitant to cover the interview just because if there's one thing that people point out that's, you know, a misquote or a mistranslation, how much else is potentially wrong within the video, the subtitles of that video, right? So I kind of wanted to wait, give it time, have other people translate it, and then we could talk about that shit. Now, as for the misquote, what it was is in the video, they quote Hamaguchi as saying that there are like younger people working at Square Enix now, and their favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy XIII. By itself should have been a red flag, right? Because whose favorite Final Fantasy is 13? Totally kidding, Final Fantasy XIII enjoyers, though I do have my problems with 13. But the actual quote was something to the effect of, there's younger people working at Square Enix, and they really liked, you know, Final Fantasy XIII growing up. Those two statements aren't super different, right? But they're different enough that it matters, like the context of what he's saying, right? Because people were taking the initial misquote and like running with it, feeling vindicated, I guess, as a Final Fantasy XIII fan. The 13 hate is, you know, forced or whatever the fuck. Final Fantasy 13's always been a great game, etc., etc. And it's like, well, that's not what was actually said. Like it all, really. It's just that people that work at Square Enix that are a bit younger enjoyed playing Final Fantasy 13 growing up. That's it. That's the equivalent of me, you know, I talk about Final Fantasy 12 a lot, that I think Final Fantasy 12 is a great game, and I do. But somebody like taking that and then running with like, David's favorite Final Fantasy is 12. And it's like, what the fuck? That's not what I said at all. It's just a game I like. But yeah, it was just kind of a weird situation. Like, I could pull up a shit ton of tweets, like replies to Genki's translation, or I guess his quote of what was said in the video, and also like quote tweets and stuff, of people just so fucking happy for some reason that the potential of there being people that work at Square Enix that their favorite Final Fantasy is 13. For whatever reason. Like, people were so excited about that, and it's just kind of strange. I will say, like, my first playthrough of 13 I didn't really like at all. I played on 360 however many years ago, played it one time to completion, and that was it. I played it within the last like a year or two at this point, and I liked it more this time than I did the first time for sure. I still think there's problems with it. It is still very much the hallway Final Fantasy, which people will try to defend like, well, Final Fantasy X is also just pretty much walking down a hallway. It's like, yeah, that was on fucking PS2. At the beginning of the PS2's life cycle. Like, how much longer, how much time in another generation of console was Final Fantasy 13? It shouldn't be like Final Fantasy X. That's the problem. Also, just the story of 10 and the characters within 10 are significantly better in every possible way than 13. At least. Anyways, that's kind of a long intro sort of thing. Let's get to some FF7. While discussing Rebirth's expanded world design, Hamaguchi recalled feedback from a player who said they felt more emotionally moved by the remake than by the OG. That reaction validated one of the team's core goals. Rather than scaling the world down, they chose to scale it up. That's definitely a statement that I can mostly agree with. It's kind of hard for me to put myself in the position of that because I have so much like nostalgia for the original FF7. It's what I played first, obviously. But I do think, you know, the modern visuals, the way, you know, remake looks compared to like the original, but also of course voice acting. I think that adds so much to emotional moments. They do miss the mark sometimes. We've talked about it with, you know, the Barret stuff in Rebirth. It still works for the most part with the dying scene, but also there's some mistakes there for sure. Like, also, as we talked about for almost 2 fucking years now, like the ending segment, I get what they're going for with like the Aerith scene and Cloud not, you know, fully wanting to accept the fact that she died. I get that, but it's just not handled as well as it was with the original for me and a lot of other people out there, right? So like, there's some mistakes there for sure, but I could see why somebody might be more emotionally moved by the remake versus the original. That said, there are plenty of people that go back and play the original FF7 for the first time, maybe before they want to play remake or after they played remake, whatever, and they're still emotionally moved by the events that happen in the game. So it still is an effective game even almost 30 years later. I will say the quote of him talking about, you know, scaling the world up or down is a little bit strange because if you're doing like a modern remake of FF7, remaking it to be a more realistic kind of world and stuff, why would there ever be an option of scaling it down? Like, who would ever fucking want that, dude? I want this shit to be almost the size of an actual planet if we could ever get to that point. It's not going to be. We're still going to have a whole planet to explore in the third game, and we had mostly the whole planet to explore in Rebirth, right? But I want this shit to be, like, relatively realistic, man. That's what I loved about the originals. Even though you play them now, like 7, 8, 9 and shit, and you go and traverse the world, and it's not nearly as big as it fucking felt when you were a kid. But still, like, that feeling I felt as a kid where I felt like I was exploring a whole fucking world. That's what I want from, you know, the remake project eventually with, I guess, part 3. So kind of a weird update in the middle of me making this video here. So I refresh Shinra Arc's feed and there's like nothing left. And it says in their bio on Twitter now, we've moved to Blue Sky, which is like the timing of that is impeccable as I'm recording here. Luckily they do have some of the translations up on the Blue Sky from the last like day or so we can look at those. As the trilogy nears its conclusion, Hamaguchi says his focus has expanded beyond longtime fans. He believes success comes from understanding the original strength and building upon them. At the end of the day, what can we do to make players happy? I mean, that kind of goes without saying, obviously, like, you're making a remake however many years later after the original, right? Like, you're definitely trying to appeal to a newer audience, so that makes a lot of sense. And from what I've seen, from people that play, like, Remake and then Rebirth and have never played the original FF7, they tend to really enjoy the games, right? It's really mostly people that are comparing to the original where we have complaints, and I think that's fair to have those complaints, but it's really where most of it tends to come from. I would say for the most part when it comes to Remake and Rebirth, and like them building off the strengths of the original FF7, I think they've done a great job, right? We have missteps here and there, as we talked about already in this video, as we talked about in plenty of other videos over the years, right? There's certain misses here and there with the games, but for the most part, it's, FF7 modernized. FF7 Rebirth director Hamaguchi says they introduced a variety of minigames to keep the game feeling fresh and add diversity of experiences while keeping things balanced. He says the original FF7 also had lots of minigames, and it was very famous for that. So this is definitely a topic that I've kind of flipped on as time's gone on, like post Rebirth, like right when it first came out and shit. I was definitely in the camp of like complaining about the amount of like mini games and shit there is to do in the game, which is a weird thing to complain about because it is content, right? But there's just so much to do at all times. Like every time you get to like a new region, you have all the different side quests you got to do, all the worlds intel shit, any sort of mini games that might be new in that region, right? And then also the story shit. So you're spending like hours and hours and hours in one area for a lot of the game, right? Which by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you're somebody that wants to complete things as you go through the game, it takes a fucking long time, dude. If you just do the story for Rebirth, it's something like 50 hours roughly, or a little bit less than that. And if you try to do like a lot of the side content, it's like it almost doubles your playtime to like 90 something hours, 100 something hours. And if you're a completionist, it'll take you like 150 to almost 200 hours, depending on how much you struggle with certain mini games and shit, right? And the other problem too is not only does it take a long time to do everything, a lot of the mini games that you have to complete if you want to do like everything in the game, unlock everything, obviously get the platinum trophy, that type of shit, like they're fucking hard, dude. Like, the Glide to Chocobo is hard for a lot of people. I kind of picked up on it pretty easily. But the piano minigame, same thing. My first playthrough, I struggled with that shit a lot. Second playthrough, it clicked for me. I was able to do it, pretty easily. The 3D brawler's fucking hard as shit without the pause trick. How could you ever do that? I don't fucking know. And also, like, the cactuar, like, fighting thing you do in the desert with, like, Yuffie and Aerith. Like, that's pretty fucking hard, too, without a guide. Like, point is, there's a lot of minigames out there, and a good chunk of them are pretty hard if you're trying to do them at, like, the highest level that's required to actually, like, unlock and do everything in the game, right? And he says that like they added, a bunch of mini games to add like new experiences and added a balance to the game. And it's like, I feel like there's not a balance because the side content quite literally doubles to like triples or quadruples your playtime at times, depending on how complicated it is for you to do this shit, right? And how slow you like take the game or whatever. Like you can be upwards of 200 plus hours to actually like get the platinum for the game, which is insane. The fact that like the side content and the mini games can like triple or quadruple your playtime is in fact the exact opposite of balance. A lot of people will defend this because it's side content, it's optional, and like, yeah, no shit. But I'm an FF7 fan. I'm a Final Fantasy fan. I do everything in these games all the time anyway. So obviously I'm going to want to do this shit. Also, I paid fucking money for this game. I want to get everything I can out of it, right? I want to play all of it. So obviously I'm going to engage with the side content, dude. It's like a stupid defense of this shit. We're not talking about whether or not it's optional. We're talking about the quality of the side content. And I personally just don't find most of the minigames to be fun. Yeah, I did them all. Yeah, I got the platinum for the game. But it's not like I enjoyed myself. Like, I didn't personally like, the fucking cactuar minigame. I didn't personally like the 3D fucking fighter. I sort of grew to like the piano minigame, but I still wasn't necessarily a fan of it. There's stuff like that, right? And that's obviously subjective, but a lot of people feel that way too. A lot of people didn't like a lot of that shit, right? Especially like 3D Brawler. I know a lot of people complained about it. I'm still not a fan of the workout minigame shit from fucking Remake and Rebirth, and we're probably going to see it in Part 3. I just don't find it to be a very fun minigame at all. So for me, at least, when we're talking about the shit, I'm speaking from the perspective of the quality of the minigames in terms of, like, are they fun to play? Are they easy? Whatever. And most of them aren't, dude. Like, they definitely knocked out of the park with Queen's Blood. I love the modern interpretation of Chocobo racing. Like, that shit's fun as fuck. But a lot of minigames are not very enjoyable, in my opinion. I know this part's been kind of long-winded, but I wanted to lay the groundwork for, how I was feeling post-Rebirth, and for the most part, how I still feel about Rebirth when it comes to, like, the side content, the minigames, whatever. But as I said, my opinion's kind of changed on this, because I think it was last year, somebody pointed out that this is the last game coming up, right? When it comes to Part 3. Like, this is the final game. Outside of them potentially doing that fourth part or some DLC or whatever, like, this is it for the Remake trilogy. So there is part of me that wants them to just make the game as big as possible. Whether that's a bunch of mini games, a bunch of side content, even if they're not necessarily the best side content, just to have a bunch of shit to do, because it is the last game. I do 100% prefer quality side content, quality side quests, quality mini games, that type of shit, for sure. And I'm not just saying I want a bunch of bloat, fetch quest type stuff in the game just to add to the runtime. But I do kind of want the game to be as big as possible. Maybe even bigger than Rebirth, dude. So, like, we'll see what they do with Part 3. Hamaguchi says that even from members such as Nomura Katase, they didn't just want to make a remake. They wanted to make a story that could include the compilation and the soul that they had birthed across the years into this new project and bring a fresh feel to FF7. Hamaguchi says that one of the things they grapple with is how much to show and include, especially for players unfamiliar with the expanded universe. Because of these different additions to the FF7 series, there are a growing roster of popular characters who weren't in OG. Definitely is one of my favorite things about the remake trilogy is them incorporating lore from the compilation, from Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, Savage Children, all that other shit, right? We've seen bits of kind of everything. I don't know if we've seen much from like before Crisis necessarily. My knowledge on that's pretty limited. But we've seen, a lot of stuff they've added from the compilation into like Remake and then also Rebirth, and we're going to see more of that when it comes to Part 3. And it is pretty interesting to think about whenever you're factoring in like brand new players, right? Because there's going to be so much shit you're not going to understand. Not even just including the compilation, like if you've never played the original FF7, there's just so much about the story when it comes to Remake and Rebirth that just isn't going to make any sense or add up or whatever, and references and things you're just not going to get because you have no prior knowledge, right? And there's definitely like a unique perspective to be somebody that plays like Remake, then Rebirth, then Part 3, and then go back and play like OG and Crisis Core and then maybe Dirge and other stuff like that, potentially. And then maybe now you can retroactively catch all the references. But I don't know if that's a better experience or not. I've kind of always been of the mindset that like you should play like the original first. I know it's going to spoil shit, the big twist in the story and stuff. It's going to tell you what's already happening with Remake, Rebirth, and Part 3. But I feel like you're missing a lot of shit if you don't know what's happening. Also having to wait years and years for the shit to be done, right? 2020 for Remake, 2024 for Rebirth, and then possibly 2027 for the third game. And it's like, just like the ending of Remake, for example, like Zack. Like I've seen people who play, these games, no prior knowledge of FF7, they have no idea who the fuck Zack is. And you go into Rebirth, and there's a lot more Zack, and you still don't know who the fuck he is for the most part, even once you get through the story of Rebirth, right? And it's like, if you've played the original game, especially if you played fucking Crisis Core, like all this hits so much fucking harder getting to play Zack and see Zack and control Zack. Like it makes it so much of a better experience, in my opinion, if you've played Crisis Core. But if you haven't, it's like people are just like, who the fuck is this black haired dude that's not Cloud? Payoff in the wait might be worth it when it comes to Part 3. We'll see what happens. We'll see how they handle, the twist or whatever. But I just feel like for the most part, in kind of a general sense, it's better to know the compilation. It's better to know the full story. Asked if any character had grown on him more deeply through the 7 Remake series, Hamaguchi says for him it's Barret. He says Barret was a product of the time in the OG, and that in Rebirth they were able to show more of his character and personality. So I assume this is kind of referencing the Mr. T caricature that Barret was in the original FF7, the kind of, in some ways, racist depiction a lot of people feel like, the way he like talks and the slang he uses and stuff like that. It's definitely something I didn't pick up on through a good portion of my life. For one, I played this game when I was very young, so obviously I'm not going to understand that shit. But honestly, a lot of the ways that Barret talks is how I talked back then, right? The slang that he uses and stuff like that is kind of how I spoke a little bit back then. Also, I'm white, in case you couldn't tell. Very white guy. I know I hide it very well, but I am extremely white. So a lot of the things that maybe people of color would find offensive about the character of Barret, I wouldn't necessarily pick up on, right? So like there's obviously that aspect of it as well. But I never found him to be an offensive character back then, but I'm not the one to really speak on that. But yeah, when it comes to Barret in Remake and Rebirth, a lot of people feel like he's handled way fucking better. And that, a big part of that, at least for me, on the English side of things, is John's delivery. John Eric Bentley doing the voice of Barret, right? The way he portrays the character, it's fucking fantastic. And he is my favorite character, outside of probably Zack, just because Zack's my all-time favorite character. We're talking about like the main cast. Barret's by far my favorite in Remake. And lastly, here we have the tease of more information for Part 3 here sometime soon. Naoki Hamaguchi says they are making progress on the development of Part 3 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy and will hopefully be able to share information about it soon. Hamaguchi, my boy, my goat, you have been saying this since September. I don't know what soon means to you. God damn it. When is soon? What's the time frame? You have an idea of when that might be? A month? 2 months? Fucking summer? When is it? I haven't been blue balled this hard in a long time, Hamaguchi. I'm not used to it anymore. Look, I am trying to let him cook. I do want Part 3 to be as good as it possibly fucking can, right? But also it's like, come on. Yeah, they're on about a 3-year dev cycle, what we've been told, right? And we're already come up on 2 years, right? 2 years of Rebirth being out. Here relatively soon. So like, we gotta get that Part 3 stuff at some point, man. We gotta start kicking that off. Like, I mean, goddamn, just give us a title. I'm gonna say it every time, every fucking video. Every video from here until we get a title reveal. Just tell us a name. What's the fucking name of the third game? And then we'll shut up for like a while, I guess, maybe. I don't know exactly. Kind of joking aside, I am extremely hyped for Part 3, dude. I can't wait to get that like first trailer, that first teaser, our first look at the game, and be able to like dissect and break down the trailers and shit like that. I just can't fucking wait for that shit, dude. That's probably why I'm so impatient, because I'm that goddamn excited. I think that's pretty much it for this interview with Hamaguchi. There's definitely more to it. It's like a 20-minute video or so. I don't know how much. I watched a little bit of it, not all of it. I kind of only covered like what I think's interesting and worth talking about. There's definitely more translations out there from like Genki and probably Shinra Arc and stuff. Maybe other sources like Audrey or some shit. I don't know. This video is definitely way longer than I expected it to be, so we're just gonna wrap this shit up. That's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Subscribe in the description below. Follow me on Twitter @FFVIIT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame, we blow that. Like Coltrane, we in here. Like Logain, or leave it. Like Cobain.